Today we've got Blake Dollier and Megan DeLucini. I did that wrong. From INDOT coming up to give us a presentation on what's going on with INDOT, how it could impact your business. And without further ado, Blake, the floor is yours.
We'll kind of share the mic here.
Yeah, and you're loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, first and foremost, for having us here to present at this meeting. In case you missed the US 40 for All public information meeting / project kickoff, what would that have been in December? Which is hard to believe.
Yeah, it was cold.
But it was very cold. It was snowing, and we had the meeting, so we understand many of you may not have been able to make it. So hopefully this is kind of a good crash course refresher on that, and also presents some new information about INDOT that you may not have known before. So without further ado, I'm Blake Dollier, INDOT West Central's Public Relations Director, and this is Megan DeLucine, our Stakeholder Services Director.
So we're kind of going to kick it off with just what INDOT is. So basically, the agency is in charge of state roads, interstates, things like that. We're broken up into 6 different districts. We are the West Central part, or the Crawfordsville district, and it's called that because our headquarters is in Crawfordsville. But as you can see on there, we encompass pretty much the West Central side of Indiana. So there are definitely different areas, but you guys are in the Crawfordsville district area. And so in our district, we have, I won't read off all the numbers for you, but we maintain state roads, interstate, large culverts, pipes under the road, bridges, snow routes, which hopefully we don't have another one of those until next year, traffic signals, flashers, signs, anything you see on the state road, we are in charge of maintaining.
And if you take a look at those two, like we said, we won't read quite all of those off to you, but we have quite the substantial amount of landmass too. We're making up 1/6 of the state all the way from Benton County down to Vigo County, and then from the state line on the Indiana-Illinois side all the way over to the west side of Indianapolis. So Plainfield kind of being on the east side of the West Central District is, again, one of the more growing rapidly sections of our district. So this is, where our partnership will continue to hopefully grow and flourish in this community as this community continues to grow. Hopefully with all these numbers and all this maintenance, we're able to keep up with that and serve the citizens here in this area as best as we possibly can.
Yes. So with that, my job is pretty much everything customer service. So if you see a pothole on the road, if you see a dead deer on the road, you will submit that to indotforyou.com. I don't know if how many of you have used that before? Not many. All right. Well, it's good for you to know because this INDOT for You site and system is the best way to get your concerns heard. We implemented this, I think, a couple years ago. It's relatively newer, but any concern or report that is submitted through this portal has to be responded to by somebody on my team. So we make sure that we are tracking how many people say what about what intersection, what roadway, and we take all of those into consideration when we determine if a change needs to be made. So you can report if there was a big storm and there's a tree on the state road, you can report that. Potholes, please, because we can't fix anything we don't know about. As Blake said, we have a lot of land mass, so we rely very heavily on the traveling public to help us out with reporting things like that. You can even use this system if you have just a question about a project coming up. And then we also have another resource we'll talk about in a little bit that'll give you some more information there.
Really, the beauty of having all of this available too is that hopefully in a perfect situation, nobody has to wait on an answer for very long. If you do, we're going to have a pretty quick turnaround time on that. There's actually a limited number of days, I believe, that has to be responded to.
Yeah, depending on what type of report it is, like if it's a pothole the size of a swimming pool, that's gonna get a little bit more high priority than a tree or a limb in the road. But they all have certain deadlines we have to meet to get it taken care of. So that's kind of gives us a little bit of accountability for reports like that.
This is the fun part here.
Yeah,
We
you
had
go
quite a
ahead.
bit of
You
this
do
in
it.
this
You do
area.
it. Go
So
ahead.
with winter operations, obviously that was something that, depending on where you were in our district this year, we mentioned we cover quite a substantial area of landmass. Depending on where you are would depend on how much of this you would have seen. I think as we get closer to Indianapolis, we probably saw a lot more of this than maybe West Lafayette saw or Crawfordsville saw, right? So this is our winter operations section of the presentation where we'll just kind of break down for you how this works. A lot of times whenever there's snow and say you live in a certain area of town on a state road, you may say, hey, why haven't I seen a truck out in the last couple of hours? And that's because each route takes 2 to 3 hours to run. Again, hopefully there are no more of those 2 to 3 hour routes for the foreseeable future. But if we do have a little dusting of snow or whatever may come our way through Mother Nature, then we'll be able to take care of that. So on those routes, 2 to 3 hours, we do try to keep up with those as best as we possibly can. But of course, having over 5,000 lane miles of roads, it does take a little bit of time to be able to treat those, maintain those, and of course, pre-treating ahead of any winter event. With that mentioned too, statewide, we've got over 1,100 plows in our fleet and 29,000 lane miles when you include the other 5 districts as well. So again, it's a lot of work, but it's work that we don't shy away from. And we always try to err on the side of caution when it comes to winter operations because as we've seen this year, we can have those surprise ice events that catch everybody off guard. And so we rely heavily on our forecasts, from our partners at the National Weather Service, of course, our local meteorologists like Brian Wilkes, for example, with Fox 59, and all of those partners that are able to provide us that information that we're able to take and be able to determine how we're going to treat these roads and ideally get them treated as best as we can ahead of and during any potential winter weather event.
Yeah, and I just want to say, because we get a lot of customer service concerns about this, sometimes it seems like the winters Indiana gets are very tricky. The certain de-icers that we use only work up to a certain temperature. So if it's going to rain before a snow event, that's just going to wash everything off the road. So us going out before that really doesn't do anything. But we can put certain additives in the salt brine that we use. So it's very science-y. I'm not an expert at all about it, but I know that our teams are very concerned about road temperature, and they rely heavily on local forecasters. We work really closely with the National Weather Service. So although sometimes it may seem like, hey, why aren't you out? We know there's a storm coming. There are certain factors that go into play for that. And so this is just, winter operations is just one part of what we do. Our maintenance teams do preventative maintenance on bridges. We inspect drains and culverts. There's litter animal pickup, ditching, some mowing. We contract a lot of that out. But site distance things, our maintenance teams will go out and address some of those concerns for you.
And along with our construction season, which of course is upcoming, the maintenance season really goes hand in hand with that. If we don't have a big construction project, a lot of times, with the many assets that we showed you that we have in our district, we like to take care of those as best as we can as well. You could think about it almost like when you buy a new vehicle, right? People will sometimes see our roads and they'll say, well, hey, why are you working on this when you just worked on it last year? Well, with your vehicle, you have to get an oil change. You have to get your tires rotated, your transmission fluid flushed, and things like that. So that's kind of a good way that we can explain that to the traveling public that, yeah, a lot of times we will put in a new bridge, but we have to take care of that bridge. Otherwise, it won't last. And we'll have to put in a new bridge a lot sooner than if we were to just take care of the assets we had. And so understandably so, there are some minor headaches that can come along with that, be it lane closures, sometimes a full closure of a roadway, but that's just what allows us to take better care of these assets that we have and be able to be the best stewards of the taxpayer dollars as well.
Yes. So with that,
This is the fun part that I think everybody's probably looking forward to.
yes, do you want to play the video first or talk about it first?
Yeah, so we can touch on it, and then we've got a little video that if you were at our public kickoff meeting, you would have already seen. But US 40 for All is an upcoming proposed project here in the town of Plainfield that has various locations, which we also will show you here. later, but it's in the very early stages right now, the earliest of stages, I should say, as we work to plan on what could be coming for this rapidly growing area, right? The west side of Indianapolis is quickly expanding, and that's a good thing. And, you know, we see this with a lot of our members out here and a lot of local businesses that, you know, could be impacted by anything coming up. So, again, we're currently in the phase where we're taking feedback, we're taking the public's input, and so we want to introduce to you some of the things that we have now and hopefully gather some feedback and be able to put that into practice out in this community.
What will the future of US 40 in Plainfield look like? Exciting infrastructure improvements are coming to US 40 in Hendricks County. US 40 for All is an Indiana Department of Transportation project aimed at making travel along this critical corridor safer and more efficient for drivers and pedestrians. US 40 is a vital east-west connector in Indiana, linking communities and families to opportunity. Here in Plainfield, this busy stretch of roadway is home to major industries, national and local businesses, and a variety of neighborhoods and residential areas. As the landscape of the county has evolved, the transportation needs for motorists and pedestrians have too. Now, INDOT is reimagining the future of US 40 with the US 40 for All project, dedicated to improving safety, mobility, and traffic operations in Plainfield, from Carr Road to Raceway Road. Potential improvements include intersection upgrades as well as corridor-wide treatments focused on access control, speed management, and pedestrian connectivity. This project isn't just about roads, it's about enhancing everyday life, connecting people to work, school, commerce, and each other. Whether you're driving, walking, or biking, US 40 for All prioritizes safety, accessibility, and the dynamic needs of a growing community. Stay connected. For project news and updates, opportunities to get involved, and to leave your comments, visit us40forall.com and follow INDOT West Central on Facebook and X. Together, let's make US 40 safer and more accessible for all.
So that's pretty much in a nutshell what the US 40 for All project will be looking like. Again, it's still very early in the process, and it showed you kind of those pinpoints of where the project would be between, but this is where we rely heavily on the public and our local partnerships to be able to discuss and have a conversation on what the needs are in this local community, because you all know it better than we do, right? And so, of course, we're responsible for maintaining and taking care of these roadways, but you all live here, you all work here and have businesses here, so we rely heavily on your input as to what we're going to do and what would best suit this community.
Yeah, and like Blake said, we're very early on, so nothing is set in stone quite yet. So there's not really a lot to tell you about because we're still gathering your feedback. So definitely visit that webpage, give us your thoughts. We will be having more meetings, public information meetings, and I believe a hearing at some point.
I believe so as well.
So we'll make sure to get that out as well.
And then with that in mind too, you can kind of see that map there was the one that was in the video from Carr Road to Raceway Road, and there's various locations there in between, but that is available on the website as well. And if you go to that, it'll redirect you to the page which is on our website, the INDOT page. So there's a lot of good information in there. If you missed the meeting, there should be some notes and things of that nature where you can go back and catch up to speed, or maybe if we said something today that piqued your curiosity, you can go back and look on this as well.
Yeah.
And see some more information on there.
Yeah, but the main 3 goals we've identified that we want to do with this project is to make it safer, to make it more
Pedestrian friendly,
yes,
essentially.
pedestrian friendly, and then to work on the connectivity issues in that area.
And so the best way, of course, you know, we have our INDOT for you where you can ask specific questions or report specific concerns. And it could be anything with this project too, or anything you heard today that you'd like to discuss further. We are open to that. But the quickest way to get a hold of anything, just, you know, day-to-day news, operations, and things of that nature is the social media. We do live in a social media driven world, so we do try to be as up to date as we possibly can. I personally am the one that runs these social pages, so I do request everybody, please be nice to me in the comments section. But it's Indiana Department of Transportation West Central on Facebook, and then INDOT_W Central on Twitter or X or whatever they call it today in 2025. But so those are good ways to be able to see the updates and things like that. Now, one thing I will mention too is I do have a life outside of work, so those pages aren't monitored 24/7. I do during the business hours try to answer comments and questions and things of that nature as best as I can. But INDOT for you may get you sometimes a quicker response or something like that. So just be mindful of that. We do try to keep up as best we can and post updates, sharing those as they come about. When we announce that a project's happening, it'll always go on there. When we announce a project's starting, the day of, it'll go on there. And then we like to share updates, of course, and then things happening around the agency. Sometimes congratulating some of our employees on retirements and for their service, things of that nature. So it's just a good way to be connected with INDOT on, a professional level and also a personal level too, because, a lot of the folks that work here also live in this community. And so, they take a lot of pride in taking care of our roadways because they call it home too. We're all Hoosiers. We all have a lot of pride in the sense that we live in Indiana, and that's why we do what we do. So, just follow along. You can find a lot of good content on there. And then press releases or alerts, we do those via text and via an email. Of course, our news partners with the local media pick those up as well. But also you can get those for yourself on your email or text. All you got to do is scan that QR code. We recently did change over to a new platform in which we send those out from. I also send those out, so please be nice to me. But as you send those out, as we send those out, you can receive those. And so just make sure that you're still subscribed. Of course, I think Hendricks County would probably be the one most people in here subscribe to. But if you travel anywhere outside of that, you can also get projects from any of Indiana's 92 counties as well.
All right, and this is my favorite thing to talk about because I use it in my own life. It is our 511in.org or TrafficWise app. So this will show you what closures are happening, what closures are going to happen soon, why they're closed, the detours, traffic speeds, weather conditions, basically anything you need before you need to go out. On a
Even
journey.
where the plows are in real time, which is one of my favorite features.
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, this is a little walkthrough. It's loud.
Hey, at least it works though.
Here we go.
And so you can just see there how you can select different layers of things you'd like to see within the app, and it's pretty helpful for, especially this time of year with different construction projects popping up.
Yeah.
And then you can see there, that's like how our traffic alerts show up whenever there's a crash or something of that nature, any unplanned incident that may close a roadway.
Yeah, so there's a lot of really good information on it. And again, it's an app that you can download on your phone.
It is free too, by the way.
It is free, yes. But yeah, especially with the kickoff to construction season, it is a very good resource to have on your phone. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had a quick question, when you were mentioning Fox 59, on 70, it was last week, where the 8 vehicles were pulled over to the side because of the potholes, and all 8 were damaged.
Yep.
One of them was a friend of mine, can they report that damage?
Yes, yes. So if they reach out to the INDOT for you website and request a tort claim form, then they can fill that out and then send it to our team and we'll fill all that out.
I passed it and I thought it was like, I was like, that can't be an 8-car pileup, because they were just
Yeah.
apart, that it was definitely, and Angela Bonet, she's like, was it really 8 cars, And I'm like,
We did speak with our Cloverdale sub-district that manages that section of I-70 as well, and they are aware of the situation too. And so they are aware that that's going on, happened, and are going to address that as well, if they haven't already.
But yeah,
Where I get on in the morning, I say, if you go over the fast, you have to go over the fast lane.
Yeah.
You cannot go in the slow lane or you will hit them.
yeah, we'll definitely have your friend reach out to INDOT for
She
you.
just mentioned it and I told her. I said,
Yeah,
"That's
yeah.
very well.
Yes,
incident."
yes, the freeze thaw weather conditions of Indiana are not kind to our roads.
Thank you.
Yes.
What's the US 40 timeline? I know you're in design phase, but what kind of timeline are we looking at?
I think right now we're still, since we're so early, we're not
I
quite.
know we're years out.
Yeah. So this is going to be probably, I would say probably more public involvement in the next couple of years, leading
Yeah.
into maybe the next 5 or so years until we actually break dirt on something. But that's all fluid and subject to change right now, just because we are in the very earliest of stages in this. But just since it's such a quickly, rapidly growing area, we want to be sure that we kind of let everybody know that this is what we're looking at, this is what we're analyzing, the section of roadway that we could see improvements on, just so that there's no surprises along the way. It's quickly growing, and we want to just be able to be as up to speed with that as we possibly can.
So businesses should think about construction 5+ years out for their own thing?
I would say that's
Very
safe.
likely.
Yeah, that's a safe bet.
And with that in mind too, that's just, something we wanted to do was let our businesses know that, kind of, hey, this is coming. I think the worst thing for anybody in just a day-to-day travel or a business is, and being raised in a family with a small business is suddenly there's something that's impacting your business that you had no idea about, right? And so I think that's, part of our outreach here is just to connect with everybody and minimize any impacts that would happen to any local businesses, be it now or years down the road.
Blake, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The map that you showed went from raceway to car, and there were segments, I don't know, maybe 8 different segments.
Yeah, it's up there for you.
Yeah, we just got it up there for you.
More than 8, but is there any thought on whether it will be all done at once, or what segments will be?
It'll be phased.
It will be
I don't
phased.
think they'll do it all. That'd be a lot to do.
That would be a lot of work. Anytime we do such a big chunk of road, a lot of times those closures aren't, a full closure all at once. We try to minimize those full closures as much as we can, or do things like under a flagging operation if at all possible. Whatever we can kind of do to minimize that impact is what we like to do, and do them in certain little chunks, sections as we go down that way. So this is just kind of a general overview on what could be to come and where. And gives kind of an aerial shot of the locations that we've studied and looked at to
Yeah,
this point.
locations that could use some improvement.
On your website, does it have, like, your areas there that are marked, what's going to happen there, or the plans?
Not yet.
Since
very
we're in the early phases, we haven't entirely come up with what specifically will be done.
We wanna hear
That's-
from you guys.
Exactly. That's where we want to connect with the local community, see what they feel would be best, be it for pedestrian traffic, for vehicle traffic, or even bicycle traffic, that we could, kind of cater to those needs. Because we could go in there and say, this is what we're doing right here, right now, or we could have community input. And I think that's something that we all value, and we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to make their voice heard before we necessarily decide which route we're going to go with.
How are these areas picked?
I think they look at things like traffic volume and crash history and just kind of the connectivity and if there are pedestrian access points. They look at a bunch of different factors, but
Expected growth too,
yes.
as well,
Safety,
within these
though,
areas.
is number one.
Yes.
Like an intersection, or just between them all, like sidewalks? Things
They look at all of that, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm a small business at number 8, and so, that's, one of the reasons, Jim, is it's a one in and one out, and
Okay.
so, my biggest concern as a really small business is loss of business.
Yep.
With that closure.
Yep.
That would dramatically impact my business.
Yes.
So, how does that work? 'Cause
Yes.
I'm concerned if it's already a one in, one out.
Yes.
What does that look like
So-
for small businesses in that strip?
Yeah, so right now, we're not even sure if it's gonna be a closure Depending on what they decide to do there will be restrictions, I will pretty safely say. But we do maintain access for businesses at all times unless it's something like we have to redo your driveway, but you'll get advance notice. For example, with the city of Greencastle right now, I created detour maps for specific businesses that wanted them so that they could share that on their pages and things like that. Like, this is how you get to me, through this detour, through this restriction. But we definitely understand and feel you. It is impacting everybody around wherever the closure is happening. So that's why it's important that you're involved. I highly recommend you submit a comment on that website just to kind of make sure, and then I can give you my contact information and I'll give that to the project team.
Another thing we've been known to do as well is whenever there are businesses kind of in the path of the INDOT project, we like to also try to put up signage where we can, when we can, where it's, where it makes sense to, and just try to say, hey, we're open for business. We did that in Greencastle,
Yep.
and that's another thing that,
Frankfurt.
in Frankfurt as well. And so we just try to do that to be able to be as flexible as we can and use our signage to direct people that, that the street is not completely closed, the business is not completely closed, and here's kind of how you can get to that. So we do everything in our power. We understand there will potentially be disruptions, but
Yeah.
we do try to help, hand in hand so that the businesses aren't tremendously impacted as well.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right. Thanks, guys.